The A
Awesome.
team, you guys, how are you?
Good,
We're
good.
just troubleshooting.
Oh, good. Great job, Shannon. Dr. Shannon, Tawnee, good to see you. Thanks for being on, Tony.
Great to see you all.
So glad to have you guys on here. So I kind of just well, it's 9 o'clock, so we'll get started. But I want to start just from the beginning because you guys, I knew nothing about the horse slaughter pipeline back in February. I knew nothing. I was brought into this. You guys, all of you, opened my eyes to a whole other horrific practice that is happening in the US. And nobody really knows about it. It was so new to me. And I love animals, and to see the injustice that's happening to our horses and to just, donkeys and all different animals. But what's really happening with this horse slaughter pipeline, it's very concerning to me, and I wanted to bring it to, a larger audience because no one knows what's going on. So let's kind of just start with, how did you guys discover the horrific practices that are happening with the horse slaughter pipeline? And I want to just point out, it's not just about horse slaughter.
Mhm.
It's there's it involves money laundering, trafficking of drugs, trafficking of humans, horse meat in our mixed in our beef, uh diseases that are coming in, through the horse slaughter pipeline. So let's just talk about all of that because people need to know. So how did you guys even discover what was going on?
Yeah,
Well,
so
Tawny, yeah. Tawny.
um I as a young child got introduced to horse slaughter when I was 4 years old. We moved into a community and there was a horse trader kill buyer in our community. So I was like 4 years old when I started learning about this, and it didn't really sink in until I was older. And I went to an auction, got a horse, and was going to keep her. But then I realized there's so many more horses like her, and it was the same auction that the neighbor kill buyer would go to. And I was like, I could rehome her and go back and get more. And so I was just 19 years old when we started this organization. We've been going for 23 years. And at the age of 4 and stuff, I was going to auctions. So I'm very well versed in auctions and horse auctions. And over the last 2 decades, very in depth into the horse auction scene. And there was things that just didn't make sense. Um, there was horses that would be at auctions with multiple auction tags, and you go back in some of these auctions, you can read the reports, and it's like they're all selling for the same price. Why are they all selling for the same price? That doesn't make sense. Why would you move one horse across state lines just to sell them at another auction for the same price? There would be sometimes rescuers, and including ourselves, get kicked out of auctions, but other people are still allowed to be there, and they're fine with them, and they're not fine with their, there's all these things within the horse slaughter pipeline that just wasn't making sense. And I'd see a lot of really emaciated horses in the pipeline, and I was like, well, why are there so many emaciated horses? Like, what's happening? And ultimately, we did get kicked out of a pretty large auction that we'd been going to for over a decade. And that really opened up what's actually going on when we started investigating that and realizing that the drug cartel is using the horse slaughter pipeline. And then we started getting horses that we were intercepting out of the slaughter pipeline that were testing positive for diphtheria. And the first horse that we tested, it was a wild horse, and I'm like, how is a wild horse going to get diphtheria when the CDC says it takes long exposures with a sick human to contract diphtheria?
And I just want to say, so the horses were actually getting human strains of diphtheria.
Yes.
Okay.
And we don't have diphtheria in the United States. The last case was in 1997 in a human, and it's just something we don't have. But all of a sudden, we're having diphtheria cases of horses in the United States, and diphtheria is prevalent in Mexico, South America, along with screwworms. And I've been trying to get it out there and telling our story is like, hey, look, if we're getting horses with diphtheria, the screwworms could easily be riding with they're coming up with the people, they're coming into the United States. If we're getting horses with diphtheria, there's probably already horses with screwworms in the slaughter pipeline. But what's going to happen when somebody sees this, because it's basically ran by a criminal network, is they're just going to shoot the horse, bury it, and shut up and keep going, because they've got, humans and drugs and everything else they're smuggling. So, I mean, I've kind of been saying for a while, I think it's already here. Now it's been documented in a cow, so we know it's here. But
Right.
the diphtheria connection, I mean, the horses really, through that diphtheria connection, showed what was happening. And, it's a horrific thing. There's lots of law enforcement video when you start deep diving and researching this, of humans riding in trailers with horses. It's a horrific thing that's been happening. And I know even veterinarians that I talk to that are getting involved in this movement of trying to end these practices that are happening, they're like, I had no idea this was happening. And neither did I for many, many years. I just saw a lot of things that didn't make sense.
And you're discovering that the horses are actually contracting diphtheria from humans because the humans are like being smuggled under the floorboards or under in a different compartment with inside of the horse trailer. So they're
Yes.
in there for, many days being sick, and then surrounded also by like the horse poop and stuff like that. And so that's how these horses are actually getting diphtheria. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So the first horse that we got that had diphtheria, it was a completely wild horse. But then the CDC's like, it takes long exposures to a sick human. And I'm like, how's this work? Are they going to put him in a chute, and like a chute that he has to stay there and somebody's coughing on him? Like, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. But then the more research we did, and talking to USDA and different officials and the FBI, is like, no, there are humans being moved within horse trailers. Like, we have witnesses that have seen this. And what it comes down to is horses are the perfect cover, because they're basically unregulated. Horses are in a gray zone in the United States. There's very much regulations for cattle and dogs and cats, but horses are in this gray zone where they kind of float between the two. So there's no real regulations over them. And so you have these cartel taking advantage of this system, and a lot of their other avenues are getting cut off. So they're just using more and more horses. Only 0.4% of horses in the United States are going to slaughter. That's just the amount needed to keep a criminal network going. It's not an overpopulation problem. I'm in Marion County in Ocala, Florida, and there is 70,000 horses just in this county.
Wow.
You just take a very small percentage of horses across the United States. This is not an overpopulation problem. It's that they need these horses in these trailers to move drugs, to move humans, traffic girls, traffic boys, and nobody knows about it. Nobody's paying attention.
Now, are there no checks at the border or, cross state line? How there must be some kind of a check, authorities that look into the trailer or anything like that. Does that happen?
Very, very rarely. And that's why this is happening so frequently within horses. So like Texas has like this loophole where if you call and get a permit number, they don't even have to see the horses. You can bring them into auctions. So the disease is just spreading rampant. Technically, like if you and I wanted to go horseback riding in Montana, we would have to get a health certificate. The Coggins would have to be listed on there. And if we were pulled over anywhere along the way, we would just show that paperwork. And yes, this is proof. There's a loophole when they're under the disguise of slaughter horses. And once they're considered slaughter horses, they're like, oh, they're just going to another auction. They're going to Texas. Here's my permit number, even if they're never going to Texas. But
Wow.
they're able to move horses across state lines and everything completely unregulated. And nobody's really checking. Nobody even really knows to check. Like, we're getting asked by law enforcement agencies, can you train our officers? They don't even know what to look for.
Wow.
And think about it too, Dr. Shannon. Horses are big, horses are powerful. Most people are afraid of horses. Are they going to step into a trailer full of 30 horses that are loose and untied and check and see if there are people in there? Most people
Yeah.
just aren't going to. But as Tawnee said, it's that loophole that is making this possible. I would love you, Tawnee, if you could, to explain how a lot of these horses, yes, they're headed to Mexico for slaughter, but so many of them don't even end up going there because they're just serving the purpose of going to that border to then do all this stuff that happens next. Can you kind of explain that, please?
Yeah. So, and if you're just joining and you're like, what on earth are they talking about? This is something that like veterinarians and myself, I mean, lots of people, you have no idea that this is happening. So what's happening is horses are being shipped. There's about 25,000 horses being exported out of the United States into Mexico. And this is happening. They're being shipped, but there's a number of horses being rejected at the same time. So they'll take a semi load down there, and maybe 15 of those horses will be rejected. And maybe those horses were sent there and they're skinny on purpose. Maybe they have open wounds on purpose. And that way they're like, oh, these ones are rejected. We can't ship them for slaughter. But then that gives a legitimate disguise where law enforcement isn't going to be pulling them over, like, oh, there's horses in there, I'm just going to let them go on. It gives them a legitimate disguise to bring drugs and humans back into the United States. Like, these horses aren't going into Mexico, they're just right there at the border. Now, Presidio, Texas, there was 6 horses that were seized about 17 miles away from Presidio, and that's a known export area for horses. So if they're bringing horses from Mexico in, and then there's horses being rejected at the same places, I mean, it's a disaster.
Now, why are they being sent to Mexico in the first place for slaughter and not just does the US have regulations on slaughtering horses?
So the slaughterhouses, there used to be, when I was a little girl and started this organization and everything, there was slaughterhouses operating within the United States. In 2007, they got shut down. And the European Union was getting horse meat and everything from the United States. But over the course of time, they've realized how diseased and toxic the horse meat is. So horses are given a host of medications that are not intended for animals for human consumption. So their meat is tainted. And the American Veterinarian Medical Association, they have recommended that all slaughter of export of horses would cease if it's for human consumption. And that's what these horses are being exported for. It's for human consumption. And, Canada is shipping horses, Mexico's shipping horses, but the European Union is like, we do not want horses from the United States because we're not raising horses for meat. We're raising them for pets and, events and all these different things, but we're giving them drugs that are toxic for humans.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
when these horses are taken down to the border and a portion of them are shipped on for human consumption, and it's not going to be every trailer load. It's going to, it's going to be staggered. Like they're very smart on what they're doing. And, in law enforcement training, like, you only catch the dumb ones. And, how long has this been going on under everyone's noses? These are very, very smart criminals that are using the horse slaughter pipeline as a network. So these rejected horses from the border, instead of going back to maybe the destination where they came from, maybe they're going to an auction. And that auction, there's drug dealers that are waiting for those drugs to come in. And some of these drugs are even being put in alfalfa feed bags.
Oh, wow.
And there was 1,500 pounds just seized in Tennessee, and they were all in alfalfa feed bags. So it's
That just
basically,
recently happened,
yes.
right?
Yep. $35 million street value.
And,
Wow.
but if you're able to move horses and feed and everything together, you look legitimate. I mean, even a horse trailer going down the road with horses that have saddles on their back, you're like, oh, it's just a rancher. He was out working with cattle or something. They can have drugs under the saddles. They can be drugs in the feed bags.
And then you've actually showed me pictures where the horses are cut and then drugs are put inside, like under the skin of the horses and then sewn back, or the drugs are even smuggled with inside of the horses. Can you speak to that at all?
I think the more I investigated and dived into what's happening to the horses, just the sicker and sicker I got. Like, how bad can this be? And talking with different officials and undercover agents, it's like, yeah, they will separate the horse's hide from its body using air compression, like, if you have a flat tire. And we had a horse come in, and I don't know if they were prepping him for that or what happened, but I highly suspect that he only had one little spot on his shoulder that, there was something there, but from his hide all the way up and over his back to the other side, his hide was completely separated from his body.
Oh,
And it was a massive infection. But once they do that, they're able to open them up. They can stuff gift cards in there. They can stuff drugs. They can move money. I mean, it's what's happening with horses is the most despicable thing that I could have ever imagined. And the deeper we investigate and the deeper we dived into all of this is just horrific. And, there are other countries you hear about things like, oh, horses are being forced to, ingest drugs and diamonds and all these things to move them.
wow.
Well, that's happening. That's happening here. We have eyewitness sources that have seen the horses, dying in the trailers. This horse right here that she's holding up to the screen, that was a horse we were able to intercept. And the entire section that's circled there in red, it was just this pocket. And like one part of it, closer to her belly, it was like old dried leather, and then it just got fresher and fresher. It's like they just kept opening it up, and there were multiple entry and exit areas to access that pocket. And when, if it's a rejected horse from the border, or they're going from an auction or something, and they get pulled over and they're like, oh, this horse is injured, they're like, oh yeah, I'm just taking it to a vet, or it was rejected from the border. Like that's how they're disguising this, and it's horrific.
And one thing I want to point out is I remember from this video that you shared was that another way that they disguise the horses is by actually spray painting them so that, one day they're a brown horse and the next day they're a black horse and people won't notice that it's the same horse. Is that the case?
So there is a lot of spray painting of horses that goes on. We've purchased horses that have had spray paint on them out of the slaughter pipeline. So basically they're disguising horses, but a lot of times the disguise is because it's a stolen horse.
Wow.
So they could make a run hauling drugs, humans out to the West Coast. And then they're like, okay, well, let's get another horse and horse trailer. They literally will scope out horse farms and cattle ranches for stock trailers, and they'll back in at night, hook up to the trailer, maybe take the horse out of the pasture. Maybe they need to disguise that horse, and then they'll take it, say, to Tennessee, and then you can sell that truck and that trailer without a VIN. Like
Wow.
you don't need a title, you don't need anything. You can just sell it. And I've seen tons of trailers being sold at auctions, and it's like, oh, we got a horse trailer here, let's sell it. And like, there's no title, there's no anything. It could be stolen, but nobody's looking in California and Tennessee for the trailer. So they're able to just move stuff back and forth. They have folks that can re-VIN trailers. It is just a huge criminal network.
And
It's
now
out of control. Yeah.
you were saying earlier that these horses are clearly not for human consumption. It's not really a practice in the United States. I know elsewhere throughout the world, some people do eat horse meat, but it's not really a common thing in the US. And you're saying that these horses are being filled with all these different kind of medications and antibiotics and all this different toxic stuff. Have you actually found that horse meat is being consumed in the United States?
Sadly, yes. I mean, again, as I just dive deeper and deeper into this investigation, it's just like, how on earth is this happening? How on earth is this possible to be happening here? And yes, horse meat is being sold within the United States for human consumption. Horses are being butchered. Their meat is being taken across state lines and sold. I've gone undercover, purchased horse meat. There's other folks that have gone undercover with us in this investigation and purchased horse meat. At Harley Davidson, there was an event in California, Huntington Beach, and they didn't know it, but one of the vendors was selling horse meat. And we've done DNA testing, and sometimes it comes back.
Oh, you got
Cattle.
muted just now. What did you say?
Sorry.
You said that sometimes it comes back what?
as horse, and sometimes it comes back as horse and cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And there's food trucks that sell it. And so if you think about the cattle industry, and cattle are very expensive. If you go to an auction and cows, $2,000 something dollars, and you can get a horse for $600-800, they're the same weight. And basically they're black market butchers. They go to auctions, they purchase horses. A lot of the times they're mobile butcher shops, or in like refrigerator semi trailers, and they will just butcher the horses, and it can be mixed with beef. It can be sold to food trucks, mom and pop restaurants at a lower price. That's the USDA, or the not the USDA, but the DNA test there. And then that's some of the horse meat that I had purchased. And it's just on a fork there, and it's really horrific. There was a restaurant in Texas that we helped shut down with the health department, and they've been selling horse meat for like years.
Wow.
Uh-oh, Tawny, we lost you.
Oh,
Yeah.
There we go.
Tawny, with that, isn't there a practice happening now where people don't know that they're eating horse meat? It's being mixed in with their beef, as you're saying. So I know that there are food trucks that sell lahasi, whatever they call it, which is horse meat, but also people are unknowingly eating horse meat because people are trying to make more money because cattle is so expensive. Can you explain that, please?
yeah. So basically, it'd be the black market butchers are out there purchasing a horse that's $600-800, and then just mixing the meat with cattle, and so they can sell it as beef, but at the same time, it's actually horse meat as the majority of it. So it's, I mean, there's just so much gray area when it comes to laws for horses, that criminals and people wanting to make money off of anything can basically get into it. And it's a very close-knit community ran by criminals for the most part. And they don't want people like you or I going in there to these auctions, et cetera. They like, oh, there's a rescuer, there's this, like, they don't want you in there, and they'll kick you out. And I've got so much documentation of people getting kicked out of auctions. One auction that's very notorious for kicking rescuers out is in Cookeville, Tennessee. And I've talked to so many people. They're like, we just went there and we were walking around and they spotted us and they kicked us out. Why would an auction be kicking out their customers?
Wow.
If you took the amount of horses that we would purchase there in a year through the commissions, they were probably making around $100,000 a year. Why would they kick out a client that's bringing in, like, purchasing through commissions like $100,000 to their auction?
Yeah.
They're getting more money from somewhere else. So the horses are just the front.
Right.
Tony, can I
And
add your hotline number? Because there's people on here, and I've seen comments that there's even suspicions in certain areas. Is there a hotline number? Do you know your number off by heart?
I
People can
don't
call?
have it offhand, but
Okay.
we can definitely post it in the comments. But you can just go to hotlineforhorses.org,
Okay, cool.
Hotline for Horses, and make a report there. Also, if you suspect anything, the FBI has a hotline tip line that you can make reports directly to the FBI. The biggest thing when I'm talking to, any agents, federal agents or anything, is this is so vast and this is so huge across the United States. It's not like it's one little thing. It's literally like, massive amounts. Like, you could have one guy in California, but now he's in North Carolina now in a matter of days. Like, they're just all over the place. It makes it very, very difficult to investigate, to track. And that's why it's really important from a federal level that laws are put in place to end this, because it's basically just a criminal network that's using the horse slaughter pipeline as a front.
And
No,
also, we
huge
have
amounts
a
of-
map of the auctions around the
Oh.
United States. And when you overlap that with the human trafficking map, it's literally identical.
Let Tony explain
Yeah,
that, because that
Tony.
was mind-blowing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, investigating all of this and going through everything, and it was like, okay, so where are all these auctions? So I basically had to go through and make a spreadsheet of it and upload it to Google Earth. And I was like, okay, there's all the horse auctions, because there's lots of auctions that are great cattle auction, family friendly, all these things. The horse auctions are very much different. It's a very rough group of people, and I got the map for that. And some of these auctions are used at cattle auctions. So they're bringing these diseased horses in, which we've documented. There's disease that slaughter pipeline horses have that can affect cattle. But they'll come in the middle of the night, maybe to a cattle facility auction, and they'll have a whole horse auction in the middle of the night, and then everything's gone in the morning. So they're just, they kind of pop up everywhere. But spent a lot of time. There's over 200 horse auctions across the United States that are doing this. And then I took the human trafficking map from a federal, documented agent, and laid it over the top of that. And it was almost identical, the hot spots.
Yep.
And
Is there a website where people can see that? Is that on
They can just
any
go
of your
to Horse
websites?
Plus Humane or Horses in Our Hands. It's all on those feeds. Yeah, it's on
Okay.
our feed. I'm going to bring it up right now. I'll try and find it. I haven't.
yeah, I made
And
a
then
YouTube video of a presentation that I've been trying to present to every person that I can, representatives, senators, just trying to get this information out there. And that doesn't have the auctions in it, that map.
Okay.
But that is the map I did the overlay with.
Yeah.
And nobody knows about it, presenting it and just getting it out there. But there is a YouTube video called The Reality of the Horse Slaughter Pipeline on Horse Plus Humane Society's YouTube. And I know the map is in there. I show images of the horses that we've been rescuing and intercepting. And I mean, they'll go as far as to insert drugs into mares' uteruses. A lot of these horses, are older brood mares and stuff within the horse slaughter pipeline. And that's when, they're shipping horses. It's like, okay, well, yeah. So why is a kill pen that's advertising a horse that's going to ship in 3 days and they're saying to slaughter, why later does it end up in Pennsylvania?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a rescue that intercepted a horse that was, quote, rejected from the slaughter pipeline. She had a chronic uterine infection and the vet was trying to fix it. And finally, she's like, we're just going to flush out her uterus and try to fix it that way. And they found pieces of tape and plastic and foreign material in her uterus.
That's just horrific. I can't even, it's hard to even just like think about. You had mentioned earlier about screwworm, and I wanted to really kind of talk about that and go in depth about what's happening right now in the US and the threat of screwworm and how this all plays a role, because we're now hearing about, finally the mainstream media has reported that screwworm was just found in a cow in Texas. And
Mm-hmm.
we've known for a while that it was a threat, and I know that, the governor of Texas has kind of spent a ton of money to try and protect the cattle from screwworm. Screwworm is a parasite, and it literally, we are actually, I mean, I have a whole rabbit hole of ideas that like I could go down with this, but I feel like it is such a threat to our beef industry.
Mm-hmm.
And now we see, I mean, side note, this is the Shannon side note, we see Bill Gates pushing his fake meat, and I just feel like there is a lot of interconnectedness there.
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah,
where
interesting.
our beef is, there's a threat, a serious threat. Nobody realizes that, unless you're really paying attention to what the ranchers are saying. And I know that the White House just invited all these ranchers to, to meet with President Trump and discuss what's going on. And screwworm was one of the topics that they were talking about.
Mm.
And not only is that going on, but because of the threat of screwworm, and this is more of like my audience would be, really interested in this, is that the FDA actually just recently issued an emergency use authorization for a pesticide to be used on our cattle, because our cattle that is being used for beef and milk, because of the threat of screwworm. Now, if you look on the FDA's website, you can see there's two different topical products that they're using. One is a powder and one is an ointment. And there are so many warnings and precautions about these different pesticides that are purposely being used on our cattle to prevent screwworm. That's how much of a threat it is. And when you look at the different warnings and precautions, and I have it right here on my computers, I just want to read it to you. It says here that treated animals must not be slaughtered for human consumption within 28 days of the last treatment. A
Wow.
milk discard time. Well, this was a little bit a while ago. I think they've established the milk discard time, but you can't drink milk from the cows that are being treated with this pesticide. You're not supposed to eat the beef from the cows that are being treated with this pesticide
Oh,
within a certain time range. And then if a mother cow, a pregnant cow is being treated with these pesticides, then you're not supposed to have the baby cow for veal. That's not, it's just they toss it out. And then it's also like extremely toxic to fish and birds. So
oh,
you're not supposed to put this stuff on the cattle if it's anywhere near a lake or the ocean or anything like that, river. And then it actually is so toxic to humans that they have to wear all this protective gear.
my
It
Lord.
actually says on the FDA website that it may be fatal if swallowed by a human, may be fatal if inhaled by a human, harmful if absorbed through the skin, harmful, it can cause eye problems. Don't breathe the dust of it. Don't contact your eye. It shouldn't be in contact with your eyes, skin, and even your clothing. There's a disclaimer on there that says, like, if you've the clothing that you've worn to treat the cattle with this pesticide, you have to then toss your any clothes out that's touched it. That's how toxic this is. And it's because of screwworm, it is now being applied to our cattle that we are eating. And nobody's talking about this. This should be on like the front page of every single news
Exactly.
story. Nobody's talking about this. And this whole horse slaughter pipeline and what's going on contributes to the screwworm coming in to the US. So I really want to talk about that because, we are facing what could just actually destroy our entire, beef industry. Um, I want you to just go over about what you found with screwworm and how it's even related to
The
the horse
horses. Yeah.
slaughter.
But first of all, can I
Hey,
just make one
yeah.
comment? One comment, Dr. Shannon, which is like, this is terrifying. Like you're saying, this should be on the front cover of every newspaper. It should be on the news.
That's the problem. They're
So
covering it up.
the cattle people are trying to, protect their cattle from screwworm. Meanwhile, when we eat that meat, it can kill us.
Exactly.
So the screwworm, yes, it could literally decimate the entire
Not
cattle
just cattle,
industry
any animal,
and horses. They're already sending out
any
warnings.
livestock.
Veterinarians sending out warnings about uh, equestrians traveling to horse events around the country because of screwworm. Like, it is terrifying. This is a real problem. So Tawnee,
And Tawnee's been warning about this to the Texas government for a year.
Yeah.
Over a year. And
Yeah.
Yeah. Last summer we went to Texas and we did 16 meetings in 5 days, drove over 1,000 miles doing meetings, telling them screwworms could be in the horse slaughter pipeline. This is very, very serious. If they want to protect the cattle industry, they need to put a cease to any export of horses for slaughter at the borders immediately.
Mhm.
As long as the horse slaughter pipeline is moving within the United States, screwworms will be able to travel throughout the United States. There's no legitimate reason to have this horse slaughter pipeline moving throughout the United States because it's basically a criminal network. There's not an overpopulation horse problem, 0.4%. This is not the issue. They need to shut down the borders to horses being exported. I talked to a veterinarian. He says the only way this is going to put a handle on stopping the screwworms is that we stop moving animals all over the place. And you talked about all these things they're doing to the cattle. They're not doing it to the horses because it's a gray zone.
Mhm.
Right.
So you have all of these livestock that are in contact with people traveling up from South America, which we've proven through the diphtheria test, that are coming into the United States, and nobody's paying attention. Like you're saying, why isn't this in the news? Why isn't this getting out there? Screwworms, like, it's not just the cattle, it's the horse industry, it's wildlife, it's
Humans.
it's humans. It's a massive problem. And I just really hope that our government will say we're gonna cease all export of horses, because if they said we're gonna stop horses being exported because of the the screwworms, it's not going to put a dent in like what's happened in the cattle industry. It's going to stop that movement of these livestock in and out of Texas. And it's not like it's going to hurt the economy and like there's some huge, massive amount of horses that need to go to slaughter. It would put a stop to the criminal network using the horse slaughter pipeline to give them access to the border and back.
And I'll
So
add, for people asking what it is, someone asked, it's a flesh eating, like it's a fly and the larva, but they eat flesh. So they can eat human flesh, they can eat livestock flesh, and it can be spread through flies. So it's very hard to control.
and
Scary.
that's how they're trying to control it, is by putting this pesticide on our cattle
Not
so
going to happen.
that they are protected from the screwworm. But then in turn, they're then slaughtering the cattle and then making beef for us to eat, and now it's extremely toxic beef. So
Mm-hmm.
And
that
the
should be a
consequences of
big
that,
concern.
like the consequences of that, here's a new thing they're putting on all these cattle. What's the long-term effects? We don't know.
We don't know
You
because they did an EUA. So,
know,
and that's, this is again my world. We saw this an EUA happen with the COVID vaccine, and they just pushed it through, said it was safe, effective, and gave it to everybody. Now there's an EUA for this pesticide on our cattle. They're saying it's an emergency use authorization, and so because screwworm is such a threat, we're going to use this pesticide, this ointment and powder, and put it on our cattle to protect them from the possibility of getting screwworm. And for anybody who is questioning this, you can just go straight to the FDA's website and you could see all the data on these two different pesticides that they are using on our cattle. It's all right there, black and white. And so everybody should be I'm very concerned about it. It should be a concern of everybody's. Um, so I wanted to ask you guys, so let's talk about a call to action. What is the call to action directly from the White House? What do you want to see
Right.
President Trump doing?
Well,
Is there an
we
executive
love an
order that he
executive
could
order.
do?
But I can go quickly into the lobbying side because we've been trying to push the bill called the Save America's Forgotten Equines Act for many, many years, 20 years. And unfortunately, it's always fallen short. But the fortunate thing is now there is a Van Drew amendment it's basically a ban on transporting equines to slaughter. And it was added to the Build America 250 Act. And it actually is going to go to the House floor, fingers crossed, in the next couple of weeks. So the call to action would literally be to call 202-224-3121. We can write that in the comments and ask your legislators to support the Van Drew amendment, because we really feel like this is one of the biggest opportunities we've ever had. And a lot of it has to do with the thanks to Tawnee's investigation, everything coming out with a criminal network, hidden in plain sight. These horses aren't just being really used for human consumption. It's a black market, and it's got to be shut down. So that we are praying that can happen. So I would say tag your legislators, call the hotline. I'll put the number in the comments.
202-224-3121.
I'm going to put,
And also, I
Can you
mean,
say that one more time? Repeat that.
202-224
31.
3121.
I'm putting
And
it in
that line goes to where?
the Capitol switchboard, and then you just ask to be connected to the legislator within your district. So your Senate or the House legislator, and they'll connect you. Yeah, Jen's putting it in there. There
And
we
then
go.
you're asking them what?
You're asking them to include or keep the Van Drew Amendment, which is the banning of horses to slaughter for human consumption, banning the transport. It's on the transportation bill. It's to keep the Van Drew Amendment as part of the Build America 250 Act. Keep it in there. Don't change it. get it through, vote yes on it, and get it through the passage through the House, and then we have to work on getting it through the Senate. That's the step after that.
And how
And
soon do we know what the timeline is for that?
Our lobbyist has said that it's got to go through the Ways and Means Committee. There's already been a yes on the other two committees without any amendments, which is great. And Vern Buchanan, who is actually the lead sponsor on the bill, who's been fantastic, he is part of that committee. So it seems like it's going to be going through the House floor. We're hoping without any hiccups. But we're going to be asking for lots of actions when it gets to the Senate, because that's got to be a 51 yes vote, and that's going to be, it's going to be a battle, but I think it can get done.
I mean, if in a perfect world, Dr. Shannon, pass an executive order and all transport of horses to slaughter immediately and shut this down, because in my opinion, this is a ticking time bomb for not just the cattle industry, but to the health and security for all the humans that live in this country. Like, it's a ticking time bomb.
We don't
many
eat horse
horrible
meat.
things.
Yeah, we don't eat horse
happen.
meat, yet there's a loophole that exists now that the slaughterhouse is shut down here. Now the loophole is that they're now being shipped to foreign countries, Mexico and Canada. So we don't eat horse meat. So why are we shipping our horses to foreign countries? It's dangerous, it's toxic, and it's so inhumane. It's being used, as we said, as a cover for transnational crime. And this is an easy win. It's an easy way to shut it down.
And shut it down quick. And the other thing, too, like a lot of people will say, well, open up slaughterhouses in America. Like Tawnee said, it's 0.4% of horses that are sent to slaughter, just enough to keep the cartels moving this horrific transnational crime. There is not an overpopulation issue. But in my opinion, yes, call, say you support the Van Drew Amendment, let's get this on the bill and get it passed. But even more so, please, President Trump, pass an executive order, shut down the transport of horses for slaughter, and you will shut down this entire pathway of transnational crime.
So is there no reason at all to then slaughter horses in the U.S.? Is that, like, what's the purpose of having a slaughterhouse to begin with? Anyway,
it allows people to overbreed, which really there should be.
And I have to add, American Quarter Horse Association came in after our lobbyists were in their meeting, and they are for all you guys that support American Quarter Horse Association. Sorry, I'm outing you right now, and I'm not afraid to. They are in support of horse slaughter because they love overbreeding. It's not regulated. They need to be regulated. It needs to be regulated. That's it. Regulate American Quarter Horse Association. They are pro-slaughter. They are
what is that association?
It's a quarter horse breeding association, so they can just breed as many quarter horses as they want, and it's not regulated.
So for those who have no idea, like myself, a quarter horse, what does that use?
And most of the horses
80%,
at auctions,
I don't know if I've got the numbers 100%, but about 80% are about quarter horses. So they're the culprits. Thank God the thoroughbred off the track. There's great programs for thoroughbreds right now.
Okay.
Those
are race horses. That's what you're saying. They're race horses.
And the
quarter horses are not race.
No, I'm saying thoroughbreds right now have a great program where there's a very small amount compared to quarter horses that end up in the pipeline, and very even smaller amount of wild horses. Yes, they need saving too, but they fall through the cracks. But most of them are quarter horses.
So they are against ending this.
Yeah. Quarter horses are the horses you're going to see, like if you're watching Yellowstone and they're moving cattle with the ranches and stuff. Those are quarter horses. They're bred to be very athletic and moving cattle and hiking up mountains and all this stuff. But they are bred a lot. And the Quarter Horse Association, for every foal that's born, they get money. So they want as many horses born as possible, so they get as many registrations as possible.
They get money from where? The government?
No, they get money from the breeders that are breeding these horses. So like if your dog is registered AKC,
I got it. Okay.
It's a registry for purebred quarter horses. And I think what it comes down to is there's so many people that will give horses homes. There's so many rescues across the United States, 20,000 horses. I mean, especially when you look at Marion County in Florida, like we've got 70,000 horses here. 20,000 horses across the United States can easily be taken into rescues. And I've heard this outcry, like for so long is we have to have slaughterhouses. It's an overpopulation problem. This is a huge problem. And if the Texas slaughterhouses got shut down way back in the day, they're like, there's going to be horses starving everywhere. We didn't see that.
No.
We did not see that. And through education, the numbers have dropped down to the 20,000 range of horses being exported. Used to be in the 100,000s. It's dropped down because people are realizing they don't want their horse to end up in that situation. More rescues are out there taking these horses. There is no legitimate reason to have the horse slaughter pipeline operating within the United States, especially when it comes to it's being basically ran by a criminal network. I don't know of a single legitimate kill buyer that's not tied into something extremely shady with all of our investigations. It's all criminal crime, animal abuse, it's connected to human trafficking, money laundering, drug cartel. Like it's a very easy thing to just be like, let's shut down horse slaughter. And especially with the screwworm threat, when you have a veterinarian saying the only way we're going to stop this is not to be moving cattle around, we have to say, okay, well, we should not be moving horses in and out of Texas with this
Without
threat.
papers. Yeah.
If there was
okay,
go ahead. Oh, I was just saying an executive order would shut that down, and then the horses wouldn't be taking potentially screwworms, to Oklahoma and Michigan, just all across the United States. But that's how the slaughter pipeline works. So it needs to be shut down.
And then you had mentioned about horse rescue. I know you guys have a horse rescue. Can you guys just kind of talk about what, Horses in Our Hands does, and then also Horse Plus Humane, what both of your different groups do?
So we started Believe Ranch and Rescue when Siri saw what was happening and horses being dismembered alive. And we've saved almost 400, nothing like what Tawnee saved, but we saved almost 400 horses. But in 2018, we were like, why is this even allowed? Why is horse slaughter allowed? And that's when we started our 501c4 Horses in Our Hands to lobby and educate people on what's happening and try to pass the federal legislation. And we reached we've reached over 100 million homes through PSAs on CNN, NBC, Fox, Discovery. We've sent 250,000 emails, if not more, to legislators within a short period of time when the bill got marked up out of the committee in 2022. It got marked up out of committee, and then again, it's the pro-slaughter groups, which I think we should talk about some other time, that got it shut down. But now it's going through transport. It's not a welfare bill. It's going through transport to stop the transportation, which I think is much better. And so we have 40 horses we take care of here, 10 along our satellites, so 50 total horses, and it's our passion.
And one note, we are regularly outbid by the kill buyers at auction
and traders
for emaciated horses. So there's we'll be at auction and we'll be bidding on a horse, and the kill buyer keeps upping the price until we no longer can pay that price.
Well, we've never lost a bid against a kill buyer, but
a
lot of other rescues have, and private buyers. Every Wednesday, the first of the month, there's usually 60. It's a big auction in Colorado and Centennial, and there's usually like 60 horses running through. Nothing like what Tawnee deals with in Texas, but there's so many private homes and private buyers there, but the traders and kill buyers who work together, they sit there and outbid you for horses, because it's not just a horse that you're buying. You could be buying a human trafficking person. You could be buying drugs. We've paid $5,000 for a horse just to save it, and God knows what they were going to use that for.
And we see, a family with their young child crying because the kill buyer outbid them. So there are good homes for these horses, but because these people need to make their quota for whatever business they're running, we get outbid, the nice family gets outbid. There's not an overpopulation problem at all.
So you're going to these auctions to save a horse, to rescue horses, and you're, willing to spend a certain amount of money, but then somebody comes in and will throw down a lot more money just so they can use this horse for trafficking purposes, drugs, humans. I mean, that's insane.
Disgusting.
It's crazy to think about.
And Tawnee's experienced this on even another level. So
Tawnee, why don't you explain what you guys do?
Yeah. So I'll just touch a little bit on the auction part, which you were just describing. So if you're sale rescue and you're going to a horse auction and you want to rescue a horse, you're immediately going to be tagged out that you're somebody new. they're not going to want you there because they've got drugs or humans in the trailers. They only want their criminal network at this auction. And if they don't just outright kick you out, they will outbid you every single time as high as they can get it to go. So they take your money, so you can't afford to go back and get more horses. And I mean, it's a game at these auctions, and I've bid up on horses, and then I've pulled out last minute because they're they're going to get paying for that horse, but at the end of the game, they're just in the office being like, hey, let's just scratch that. Like, nobody's actually paying for the horse. For a horse that they're saying they might bid up to 5,000 for, there might be drugs associated with that horse's auction number. And, they bid up to 5,000. They got that horse. They paid the 5,000 for that horse. But the next bidder up was the drug dealer. And then there's another transaction for the horse thing. And in these auctions, they can sell horses, and the horses never go anywhere other to another auction. The transactions were all drugs and even human
So it's a
trafficking.
way to launder. It's a way to launder
It's a way to
money.
launder money.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's unbelievable.
It's horrific. It is absolutely horrific. It has to stop. But as far as what Horse Plus Humane Society does, you've heard we obviously investigate situations like this. We've helped over 15,000 horses in the last 23 years, not only in the United States, but around the world. We support horses in Indonesia, South America. We've had vets down South America and have documented screwworms on horses down there. We have adoption programs, and we just basically are on the front lines trying to do everything we can to end horse slaughter. And I know we do get criticism for, why are you investigating this? And I have to wonder, why are they asking, why are we investigating? Are they trying to, are they connected to this somehow? But we want horse slaughter to end. And in the United States, we have dog and cat shelters, and these dog and cat shelters are not out there worrying about these dogs getting butchered alive. They're out there just trying to help them find homes and stuff. We want that for horse rescuers across the United States right now. Right now, they're in a horrific war with the kill buyers, and it's really the kill buyers. It's the drug cartel that are out there, basically using these horses as a front. They're asking huge amounts of money for these horses after they get them from auctions, and they'll do their personal PayPal accounts.
Yep.
You have an old, grandma watching this horse is going to ship in 3 days. She'll donate, the $2,000 to $5,000 to save that horse. Has no way to take that horse, but then they lie to her and say, oh, thank you so much. We were able to save it. And that horse is going to a rescue that we work with. And the rescue is not a rescue. It's just another kill pen where this horse is moved, and it could be used to move drugs onto the next one, and it shows up at another spot. Or if the horse is used too much, then let's make it actually disappear to Mexico.
Wow.
And this is,
And it's a
think
vicious circle.
It's horrible. And think about, these are horses, sentient beings, horses that have, taught their families how to ride, horses that are people's best friends. They've won money on racetracks, whatever it is. These are beautiful horses that are healers and teachers. I mean, every horse that we've saved, we run equine healing programs. The healing that we witness is just, we're in awe of how healing these horses are for people with PTSD or people going through cancer, people with depression. And look, like, they have no voice here. Like, they are being used and putting through these horrific circumstances and can't do anything about it. Somebody has to take a stand and put an end to this. But even more, what's more important now is that this issue and this transnational crime is a massive threat to the United States and every single human being, every single, cow, every single, it is a huge threat, and this needs to end. So maybe for, what we've been after all along is to end this brutal practice and to save the horses. But I think now is a perfect time to do that, because what we've uncovered is what's really been happening all along. And it's just horrific, and it's scary.
What really exists, to be honest.
Yeah. It's really terrifying. It needs to end. And President Trump, the government,
Bobby
Cassie,
Kennedy, Secretary Kennedy, if you're watching,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
there things could be done immediately. And yes, you want to support the Vandrew Amendment. We want to get that passed, but even more so, an executive order. Let's end this now, because if we let it go much longer, it's going to be disastrous.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any any more things you want to add to this? We've gone almost, it's been about an hour. So is
Wow.
there, I thought this has been a really great conversation. So much information here.
Thank you so
So,
much, Dr. Shannon. Tawnee, do you have anything else you want to share from the investigation or from your perspective?
Yes, I just feel like, the millions of dollars that they're putting into trying to protect the cattle from screwworms, and they're ignoring the horse slaughter pipeline, which is bringing horses in and out of Texas constantly, is a huge threat. And all they have to do is say no more horses being exported into Mexico, and that threat will be taken away from Texas. Like, there won't be horses moving in and out of Texas for slaughter. And even if it was a temporary halt or something right now, while we're working on federal regulations to get this passed on a federal level, it just has to stop. And if it doesn't, it is a ticking time bomb of a nuclear bomb that's going to destroy the cattle industry. And horses are going to be affected, people are going to be affected. This has to stop, and we just have to stop moving horses for slaughter. It's not even for slaughter. It's being moved for drugs and human trafficking across the United States. But they legitimize it by saying, oh, it's slaughter horses. It has to stop. And our government needs to say, we are not going to have these horses moving throughout the United States and back and forth in Texas that are going to jeopardize the cattle industry.
yeah, and it's interesting that you just said that, because it reminded me, I read something recently, I'm trying to find it right now. The cattle trade with Mexico has completely stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So because of the screwworm threat, our government was able to stop the cattle, trade.
Right.
And the moving of cattle over our border. So the same can easily be done. If they were able to do that with cattle,
Yep.
then that can easily be done with horses.
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes down to corruption and people with money. And there was a comment earlier that said, the drug industry is a much larger industry, like drug cartels, than the cattle industry, is the amount of money that's being moved. And it's like, okay, so why are horses still the ones that are being moved? It's because there are people that are connected, that have very deep pockets into the drug cartels, that are keeping this going, because they need a legitimate looking Trojan horse to move their drugs, and it just has to stop.
Trojan horse.
I
That's
love that
right
term,
there.
though.
That is such a symbol of
Yes,
everything right there.
totally.
That's what's happening. It's got to stop, and it can stop, but it has to be taken seriously. And it's just no more exportation of horses into Mexico. And then all of a sudden, Texas is not having just hundreds of horses brought in and moved back and forth. It will protect the cattle industry. And that's what we need to do. We need to protect the cattle industry and put a stop to the movement of horses for slaughter, disguised slaughter.
And
Yeah.
Shannon, the CDC is very aware of this. They've had the positive test with diphtheria. They're very aware of the diphtheria. If you follow Horse Plus Humane and Horses in Our Hands, you can see updates every single day and the calls to action. And just keep ringing the hotline, keep sending in the emails to your legislators. And we just got to keep pushing really hard on this and bringing the awareness. And the fact that, the CDC and Health and Human Services are very aware of this.
Yeah, I've actually spoken directly with Secretary Kennedy about this issue. So he's aware. He knows what's going on. HHS, CDC, the White House is very aware of what's going on with screwworm, because they're trying to do everything they can to, prevent it. But this is just one more layer to trying to prevent it. And I think it's a really important one. And so if they're able to stop the trade of cattle over the border, they can easily stop horse transport over the border.
Yep.
100%.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Shannon.
guys.
We are so grateful for
Before
you.
we end, I just want to put out your call to action one more time. Whatever phone numbers you want people to call, let's give that to everybody one more time so that they can get involved and ask their legislators, to do what they need to do. So one more time, phone numbers, who do they want to call? What do they want to say?
Yep. And it's in the comments too, guys. You can see it there.
So you want to call 202-224-3121 and go to your local legislator and ask to support the Vandrew Amendment.
In the Build America 250 Act.
Yeah, in the Build America.
Just keep the Vandrew Amendment for the ban on transporting equines to slaughter.
And put
And that's
in
happening right now. That
Yes.
the Build America 250 Act, we all know it's our 250th anniversary this year, so we've got this act. So it's going on right now this summer. You want to make these phone calls, today and show your support. So
And not just today, tomorrow as well. And
yeah,
the next day. And the
every
next
day,
day.
every day until it happens.
Yeah,
So.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to
Yeah.
thank Shannon because Shannon has been our not queen in shining armor for this, and she has done so much selflessly. She's just done this and given her time and energy over the last few months, and we couldn't have done it without her and of course Tawnee.
Tawnee, you're incredible, and the work that you've done with this investigation has been, game changing and eye opening for everyone. So yeah, thank you both for all that you do. We're so grateful.
You guys have opened my eyes to a whole other world of activism that I never knew I needed to get involved in. So, and I appreciate it, and I love being a part of this because I love animals, and I just don't want to see this happening to our horses. I think it's a horrible thing, and so I really appreciate you, bringing me into this, and I'm happy to help any way that I can. So
You already have.
And thank you, everyone listening in,
you.
and for your
Thank you.
advocacy and all that you're going to do to help make this happen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank
Make
you,
those phone
guys.
calls.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.